So without further ado, it gives me great pleasure, it's a great honor and privilege to welcome the only, the one and the only, I think I made that clear, Commissioner Ed Campy of Martin. I guess I'm so excited that you're here. But not only is Ed a great public servant, I also consider him a friend. I've known Ed for many years, and when we got together a few months ago and spoke about what we're doing here at WBEC Florida, he proposed the idea of having a women's business event where he could show support for women in the region, Martin County, and the Treasure Coast in general. And so it was his idea to come up with this women's business development workshop series. So we're very honored and pleased to have him take the time to come and share with us how to do business with the government in general, maybe with Martin County in particular, opportunities that may exist. And I also want to let you know that Ed is not only is he a commissioner, but he is a businessman. He's an entrepreneur. He's had successful businesses that he has started and run himself, and he's a global entrepreneur. So he sees things from an international perspective. So again, without further ado, I introduce to you Mr. Ed Campy, and Nancy will do the honors of asking him some tough questions.
Well,
that was very nice of you, Emily. Thank you.
Yes. So, Commissioner, why don't you tell us, since, Emily gave such a great background on you're a business owner, plus you're a public servant. So how about telling us how long you've been with Martin County Commission and why you're so passionate about it?
Well, first off, let me thank you very much for the opportunity. And Emily, when I hear you talk about me, I got big goals to live up to. As Nancy and Emily said, my name is Ed Campy. I think of myself first and foremost as a business person or as an entrepreneur. And actually, if you hear background noises, I'm at work. I work as a commissioner, but my other real job, my regular job, is I work for a company called Chicago Stainless Equipment. It's a small family-run company. I'm not a family member, but it's a family-run company. They've been in business for 83 years. We manufacture industrial pressure and temperature gauges for industries, and for the last year or so, quite a bit for the pharmaceutical industry. As you can imagine, everyone's ramped up in that business. I've been a commissioner. My history of political life is interesting. I never had any expectation of running for a political office. My wife and I began to open in 2005 an ice cream and chocolate store in Palm City, Florida, which is in Martin County, in between St. Lucie and Palm Beach on the East Coast. And we had a plan, and just like many of you, we had a vision. We were capitalized appropriately. And it was so difficult to build the store out and open it because of the challenges that the local government had thrown in, the roadblocks, if you will, had thrown into us trying to open our store, that when we finally did open, of course, right before the Great Recession, which was perfect timing, I was very frustrated with how the process worked. And some folks reached out to me from the Chambers of Commerce and said, well, if you're frustrated, maybe you'd think about running for office. And I did, and I won. And so I served 4 years as commissioner as I ran my businesses of the ice cream and chocolate stores. And then I opened a dry cleaner as well. And what we used to kid is that we would snip the bottom of the ice cream cone off. The ice cream would drip onto your shirt, and we would bring it next door to the dry cleaner. And so we really try to maximize business. And so I ran for one term, did not seek a re-election to get back to the private sector. And then when I was out for 4 years, all of the things that I tried to accomplish in the government, enhancing business development and economic development, our county is known for being relatively restrictive. And you can imagine from an economic development point of view, that's challenging. So the 4 years that I was gone, we basically slid back on all of the things that I had accomplished. So they had said, why don't you run again? So in 2012, I ran again. In 2016, the years go by fast. In 2016, I ran again against the person who had replaced me and beat him and was back. And so for the last 4 years, I've been a commissioner doing both jobs now at Chicago Stainless and commissioner. And then in 2020, when I was up for re-election, good for me, no one ran against me, and I automatically won again. So I'm in my first year of my third term. And so it's an honor to be with you. And like Emily said, she and I have known each other for quite a while. She's been remarkably helpful in all of her different capacities for entrepreneurs and small businesses. And I count her not only as a great friend, but she's an unbelievable confidant. She introduced me to Nancy and told me about the WBEC. And that just speaks right to me. You know, there are plenty of men, as I'm sure you know, that are really supportive of women-owned businesses. In Martin County, before I moved to Florida, I lived in New York State for my entire life, but I worked in the garment center in New York, and most of my bosses were very strong, smart, talented women. So I've had that my whole professional career, and have never been like, oh, I can't have a female boss. That's never been a thing for me. I have two brothers, so I never had sisters. But I had a very strong and very talented and smart mom, and thankfully I still do. And I have two daughters. My oldest is 25. She graduated the University of Florida with a journalism degree and is now getting her master's at FAU in social work. And then I have twins that are 20, Emily and Nicholas. And Emily is, you'd love her. All of you would love her. She is strong-willed. She's very petite and she looks young, but she's the dynamite. When people push her, she pushes back, and she goes to the University of Central Florida, and was hoping to do a semester abroad in business in England, but you can imagine that fell out. So I have great women in my life. So when Emily talked about what you were all doing, I said I wanted to participate. I've always tried to support our local businesses at every level, the mom and pops to our corporate partners, but to specifically focus on women, I thought was an excellent idea. And Nancy and Emily and I have been working on sort of a master class, and I would encourage all of you to participate in it. The other interesting thing before I end this long answer is in Martin County, 4 of our 5 constitutional officers are women. The tax collector, the supervisor of elections, the property appraiser, and the clerk of the court. Our county administrator is a female, our county attorney is a female, our CFO is a female. We have a very strong, powerful group of women that run the show. And so I'm very familiar with how powerful that can be. And so I'm happy to be with you all today. Thanks, Nancy.
Beautiful. Thank you for that comprehensive answer, because you touched on a lot of really important things. And I could tell by your answer that you are truly a servant leader, right? Caring about your community to the point where you saw something was not working and you decided to run for office to change that, and then run again, right? So
I can't complain this time. I knew what I was getting myself into the second time. But.
Right. So we always encourage our members to get involved in politics. Actually, we promote a national organization called Women Impacting Public Policy, whip.org. And if one of my team members will put the information, the link to WHIP, it's a bipartisan organization that really lobbies on behalf of the U.S. National Congress for women's issues, women's business issues. So the process, well, one of the reasons we brought you on to this event, Ed, is because we're always touting and promoting the fact that you can do, as a businesswoman, you can do some really good business with your local county government, right? Your local county commission, your school board, et cetera. So I went on to the Martin County website, and I saw that everyone has to register. If you're interested in becoming a vendor with Martin County, you have to register with something called Demand Star. So can you give a little bit more information on how that works?
I can, thank you. I'll also tell you that our head of purchasing is a woman. And I reached out to her because as a commissioner, you know, I'm higher up the ladder than a lot of the day-to-day operations. But when I knew what our topic was going to be today, I reached out to a wonderful person. Her name is Christy Brotherton. She's been in our purchasing manager for a couple of years. She replaced a woman that had been our purchasing manager for 30 years. And so what Demand Star is, it is a government website that you're coming in on the supplier side, but from our point of view as a purchaser, it is sort of a clearinghouse of all different vendors, and everyone uses it. It's not just Martin County, all over the state of Florida, all over the country, and many different governmental levels can use Demand Star. It's a program, and an outside program that allows someone like in the government, a purchasing manager that's looking for something, to go into different categories and solicit depending on what the commodity, they call them commodities. So depending on what commodity you're in, you would register there. And then when any government or any other entity that has access to Demand Star, they would type in what they're looking for. And if you're a registered vendor on Demand Star, and I think there's a couple other program or web-based programs that do similar to Demand Star. So don't just focus on Demand Star. We use them, but there's others. So research them all and register your company. And what will happen, even when you're not trying, if someone's looking for a product or commodity that you sell, you'll be notified to participate in the bid process. Mm-hmm. There are certain bids, and then if you can also contact your individual counties. And if you're doing business in Tampa, let's say, in Hillsborough County, you don't have to just do business there. You'll have an advantage as a local vendor in your county. Quite a few counties offer a local vendor preference, which would allow you to compete against other vendors, your competition from other counties or states, but you'll have an advantage as a local to, in our particular case, to match the lowest price. You'd be given that opportunity. But you can also reach out to your local governments. If you do, let's just say you're in road construction equipment, you can reach out to Public Works directly and sort of solicit them as you would other customers, and build relationships with engineers and other people within the specific departments of government. So although we have a purchasing manager who's responsible for helping all of the different departments make purchases, if you have a specific product or service, reach out to a specific county department or governmental department. It could be a municipality, it could be the cities and communities. We have, in our small county, we have 160,000 residents here. So we're a relatively small county, but we also have the city of Stewart, the village of Jupiter Island, the village of Sewell's Point. Those smaller governments might be easier. Just when you call on smaller businesses, they might have a much smaller decision chain where you can speak directly to a decision maker at a smaller community that you might think, well, they're not, going to need my products. Well, maybe they will. Mm-hmm. And so they might have two people that run the entire government. So you're speaking to a decision maker and you can make an immediate sale that way. Demand Star. So you can also register within departments of the larger governments so that when they need a product, they're going to reach out to purchasing and say, we need this construction equipment and we want to purchase it from XYZ. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So that also helps you quite a bit. The other thing I would tell you is that, and maybe I'm getting ahead, so let me make that my answer.
Okay, great. So when I had gone online, and Joanna, thank you for putting the link to Demand Star. I saw that there are free services and there are tiered services too. So if you want to go beyond your local government to the state or national, I think that the charge for the national exposure is $2,000, but you can probably get a lot of information just using the free service. And Ed, would you repeat Christy Brotherton? Is that who you said you're?
In our county, her name is Christy, Krysti, Brotherton, not Bridgerton, Brotherton.
Brotherton. Okay. All right. Well, that's,
even if you went to any, I would say that's ours, but if you went to any of your county's website and looked for businesses or purchasing or anything like that, you'd find, bid opportunities, vendor registration. Those are the keywords that Christy had mentioned, and I'm sure all counties have the same one. You know, most people don't think about doing business with their local governments, but you know, their checks always clear. You know, it's a complicated process, but once you get in, and I will say, the higher you go up the ladder, it's in my world, we started to do some business with governments and the federal government. You really need to know what you're doing to do business with the federal government or even the state government, because if you make mistakes, which inevitably smaller business people do, it's just, you know, it's just human nature. Those mistakes can be very costly the higher you go up the ladder. So we chose not to do federal business because the downside was outweighed the upside for us. It's very complicated. There's a lot of paperwork. If you're not really analytical paperwork type of person, you know, in entrepreneurship, we call it front of the house, back of the house. If you're more of a salesperson and an entrepreneur, and you can't really focus on those details and those very rigid restrictions of things that have to be done at a specific date, you have to meet deliveries, you might want to steer clear of that. At the local level, or also, like Nancy said, school districts. Our school district in Martin County is our largest employer, employing over 3,000 people. So if you're doing any kind of business, a service or product, school district is an excellent opportunity. And don't confuse the county or the municipal government with the school district, two completely separate organizations, separate budgets. The other big group to think about doing business with is your local hospital. Our hospital, you know, when they're our next largest employer, and most people don't think about those organizations, the municipal government, the school district, the hospitals.
Right. Thank you. And I'll just highlight a couple of things that you said again. You can, and we say this a lot, is that you can leverage a very small contract that you got as possibly a no bid contract, or with, you know, very little paperwork. You can then leverage that to larger contracts by saying, yes, I have done business with local county government, or yes, I have done business with the local school board. So don't overlook those possibilities. And as Ed mentioned, very often there's, you know, some preference to the local residents. So you want to keep that in mind too. So Ed, let's
women-owned businesses, veterans, women-owned businesses, and local businesses all get a preference in most counties.
So I did also see on your website that the county has a business accelerator program. So can you say a few words about that? I
can. We have two different economic arms or organizations within our county. One is the Business Development Board, which is basically what it sounds like. It's made up of about 20 different members that are on their executive board, some a local elected official from each of the municipalities, some business executives, members from the school district, members from some not-for-profits, from the hospital, and they all work together to collaborate to try to assist the three different types of business development: assisting existing businesses, helping people start businesses, and helping people relocate businesses from somewhere else to our county. And Martin County, like I said in the beginning, you know, we are a much older community by age. We have a lot of retirees that live here to enjoy what Florida has to offer, but their businesses and their children and their livelihoods are somewhere else. So we do have sort of a tougher grind with folks that are not really looking for economic development, looking for development at all. And that Business Development Board, we're their largest funder. The county, as a government, we fund them. So they are sort of under our umbrella, if you will. So that is good in terms of having a close relationship with the government, but it's also difficult because as commissioners with different philosophies of economic development come and go, you know, it's not necessarily a Republican or a Democratic issue. Sometimes there's pro-business and anti-business commissioners that run in that don't want to see businesses like a Costco come to our community, and others that do. So the BDB is sort of stuck sometimes, being the purse strings can be tightened up if the elected officials don't like what the BDB happens to be doing. And I'm a pro business development person, obviously, so I'm for that. But we have some other retirees that are very wealthy and don't focus on economic development. Our other group is the Economic Council, which is a private organization of mostly CEOs. It's a paid, you have to pay to join, and they do a lot of marketing for us. So the BDB created the BAP, that we call it, the Business Accelerator. Let me make sure I'm calling it exactly what it is. The Business Accelerator Program, the BAP. And it is here at least, and I think a lot of counties have something similar now, incubators or things like that, but it might have a different name. So if you're in a different county, don't specifically look for a BAP or the Business Accelerator Program. They might call it an incubator or, workshops or whatever. And especially now during this coronavirus pandemic that we're in, the federal government has pushed a lot of money down through the state and through smaller local governments. And some of that money needs to be used for economic education and enhancement of entrepreneurs and business people like yourselves that have been adversely affected by the pandemic. We voted yesterday at our commission meeting. We're using $1.5 million of our stimulus funds to create an actual site in an empty, vacant building at we have a municipal airport, at our municipal airport, where, almost as you would think of students in high school that are in training academies and, learning how to do HVAC or culinary or nursing care, we're creating sort of that academy training facility for grownups, people who have, been let go because of their company either went out of business or downsized and need to train into something else. I believe that the whole global economy and how business was done, imagine how many of you might be working from home and never going to go back to the office environment. What does that mean for the little, luncheonette that was near your office building that now the office building has got 80% vacancies? So you might need to retrain, or you might know people that need to retrain. So we've done that. The Business Accelerator Program is something that you would apply to do. They don't take everyone all the time because they try to really focus one-on-one with the applicants. And so instead of taking 20 people in, they might take 7, and they offer economic grants to offset the tuition that they charge. But when you graduate through that, they've given you the tools that most of us like to believe we have, but they're really going to train you with local college professionals, retired executives, current executives. So the nice part about current executives is if you go through that program, you're constantly meeting people and networking with people that can assist you in your business. It might be something you never thought to do, but it's another, instead of putting money into advertisements in newspapers or on Facebook ads, spend that $500 or $1,000 or whatever it might be and get into some of these educations. You gain all of the knowledge, but you also gain all of the networking opportunities and a lot of people, everyone that's involved with the Business Development Board. When you graduate, you come before the entire group, maybe at a luncheon of 300 people, and they announce you as making it through the program. That's the kind of marketing and advertising you can't pay for.
Right. Right. Beautiful. Beautiful. And again, we're all about education and, finding those local resources, right? So the reason I knew to ask Ed about this question is I spent some time on the county's website, and that's where you will find this kind of information. The applications are there, and their newsletters where they're highlighting who was given the awards, when the next cohort is going to start. All that you can find in the county website. So remember to do that kind of research. Okay, so Ed, let's change focus a bit and say my next question to you is, what's the best way to get noticed by the county as a business owner or supplier?
The best way to get noticed specifically by the county would be similar to what you would do in other kind of networking opportunities. Meet the people, apply for things, even if you're not necessarily sure you'll get it. Constantly apply for those bidding opportunities. Put yourself out there, call up and ask questions. I can speak for our employees, but I would assume in most cases it's most employees. You're doing them a favor. You have a service or a product that they're looking for, or they might be looking for in the future. So don't think of yourself as cold calling. These are people that get paid to research avenues of, individuals and companies that are offering products and services. It's not like you're calling someone at dinner time at home. These are people that are professionals that might be just as interested in hearing from you and what you have to offer. So don't feel like you're going in at a negative. Apply for different opportunities, even if you don't get them. I liked what Nancy said. I've been a big proponent of a handwritten thank you note my entire career. Maybe it's just the way some of us are raised. I've been fighting with my kids their whole lives. If they got a birthday present or something from someone, send a thank you note. It's literally a lost art. I started it in my garment center career back in the early 90s. And I was a young salesperson, and the older salesmen and women looked at me like I was a fool because I had a box of Hallmark thank you cards. And when I got an order, big or small, I would write a thank you note. And that accelerated my business so rapidly. So many people, when they came in to visit me in my showroom, they're like, "You were the guy that sent us a thank you note." That is huge business. Even when you get a thank you note personally from someone's child or someone you do business with, and not just thank you notes. Look in your newspaper, look on social media. If you get an email or if you're on LinkedIn and it says, "Hey, congratulate so-and-so got promoted," or "so-and-so got a new job," just take out a card and say, "Congratulations, we're so happy for you." I have a drawer in my desk as an elected official that when people send me thank you notes for helping them with a problem, cracked sidewalk, but I also got a congratulatory note from Rick Scott, the governor, when I got elected, and from Ron DeSantis. I'm sure it wasn't Rick Scott who wrote that out, but I saved them all. I get a Christmas card from the White House, which obviously Donald and Melania were not writing themselves, but I saved them. I have a drawer of thank you notes because it's so rare to get one, or a congratulatory note. Just constantly do those. And what does it cost you? It costs you a box of thank you notes or a box of blank cards that say, "Congratulations on your promotion, so-and-so," and drop your business card in there. And that now the person that you might be trying to do business with is holding your business card in their hand.
Right.
Because letters and advertisements and brochures that you might send to them might never get into the decision maker's hand. A personal thank you note, my executive aide knows, she goes through all my mail, but every thank you or congratulatory card that I get is waiting on my desk when I get there.
Right.
And if there's a business card that was in that card, it's 99% either stapled to the thank you or it's still in the card. And your business card's never getting into those people's hands. And that's not just for government purchasers, that's for anyone you're doing business with.
Yes, so we're always promoting that people do business with people they know, they like, and they trust. And sending a handwritten note is probably step one in building that trust, right? And in building that I like you, I remember you, as opposed to, as Ed said, just sending something out that's more a sales request, right? So start off with a thank you. Beautiful.
May I add one more thing that I've done politically? Politics is like selling myself as a candidate, so it's not that different. Start friending people that you can network with on social media. A lot of decision makers are still using Facebook. Young kids might be off Facebook. I don't expect you to Snapchat, business executives, but Facebook, There's a lot of people that are still, LinkedIn is sort of like a business dating service as far as I'm concerned. Facebook's a little more, casual and social. If you're a regular person, not a verified person, you can have up to 5,000 quote unquote friends on Facebook. I have 5,000 friends. Now, maybe 500 of them are people that I know from out of the area, but 4,500 of them are Martin County voters. And every single day on Facebook, it'll say, these 12 people are celebrating a birthday. And for the last 4 or 5 years, I have wished every single morning, every one of my friends on Facebook, a happy birthday. Mm-hmm. And it's not just like happy birthday or a meme. And when what happens with Facebook, you start typing H, the first word that shows up is happy. And then birthday is right behind it. And then I type in their name, exclamation point, I hope you have a great day. Every single day, and I have 5,000 of them to do. That is huge. I have so many people that I've engaged in a different level because of that. So if you have the time, or if you have someone that can do that for you, start cultivating. You should have 5,000 people on your Facebook page, and they should be not from Hawaii. They should be people that you looked up on the Chamber of Commerce, that you knew in your community. They're people that you want to be friendly with. Just make a friend request. Maybe they don't do it, but if they do, now when their kid graduates high school, congratulations. It takes 2 seconds, but like Nancy said, they know you now, and they know you differently than someone who's just trying to do business with them.
Right. Very, very good advice. So our final question for you is, can you give us an example of a successful supplier? Did they pivot their business? Did they, or how did they keep in contact with you?
I can, this is a very specific example, but I've been thinking about that. And the reason I can use this company as an example is because I've just seen them. No one said, oh, by the way, this company's doing a tremendous amount of business with us. I've just noticed it as an elected official. I just noticed that when we vote on contracts, this company kept coming up. And there's really 2 examples. One was a small person that owned like an old time stationery store, office supply. Now you can imagine that's a tough business to be in when you're competing against, Office Depot, Staples. That's tough. This person sells copy paper and office supplies, and they just kept pushing and pushing and pushing. They started out with just some of the basic stuff like office furniture that was harder to get. And their first couple of rounds, they put their prices in lower just to try to get their foot in the door. So maybe they didn't work on their traditional markups and profit margins. They worked closer, because in an analytical world of purchasing, sometimes it's exclusively, if it's apples for apples, who's less? Who is less? When you're putting those quotes out there. Now, you don't want to work for free. My dad calls it practicing. You're business people. You don't need to practice. But on the other hand, if you can just tighten it up, that doesn't mean that you're stuck at that price forever. But this person did that on some commodity items, and then developed a relationship with our purchasing people, and again, with people within the different departments. And maybe when they sent an order in of staplers or whatever, it again had a little handwritten note that went along with the order. So the person that received that order got the thing, and it was a note. So when they start asking now, even if you've never met the person, now they're in. So that was one person, a small kind of office supply vendor who's competed against the big guys and has done very well with us. The next one was a company called Sunshine Land Development. They used to just do landscaping work for the county, but then they started to do nursery business, and then they started to do parking lot striping, and then they started to do sidewalk repairs, because a lot of governments, when times got tough, they closed down some of those divisions. They outsourced some services so that we don't have a road striping division anymore. We sent that out to private industry to do. And all of a sudden, everywhere I go, I see these guys' trucks. And if you have the ability to do some types of businesses where you can market your company, we made a deal with this person that in certain areas that are landscaped, we allow him to put a sign that says, this area landscaped by Sunshine Land Design, some people were complaining, some residents complained, saying, why are you allowing this private company to market themselves on government property? But the reverse of that is that when their name is out on that site, they have pride and ownership that site looks beautiful. And so we allowed them that opportunity to. The advantage for us is that if their name's on it, they're going to do a nice job. And the advantage for them is, like, little spots all over the county. It says, Sunshine Land Design.
Well,
and they were very small companies. These are not gigantic, $100 million companies. These are people that live in your community that you see in church, and they're successfully doing business with the government.
Yeah. So I wanted to just point out and remind everyone that sometimes it's a good thing to ask. Right. So this company, the example that you just gave, they asked, can we put our sign on the job that we did? And what's the worst thing that can happen is they tell you no. But as Ed pointed out, and what you can do to make sure that the answer is yes when you ask is to point out that, with my name here, anybody who sees trash or who is not happy with the way this is maintained, they know who to contact and who to complain about. So that's a way to kind of get what you want by presenting the benefit to the person you're presenting that to, right? So Ed, I want to just say thank you so much. You've given us lots of really good information, lots of food for thought. And let's see if there are any questions from either Facebook or from the team. Anything that you might want to ask Ed?
Yes, Nancy, there was a question on Facebook regarding the bidding process on the Manstar. If you have any tips, Ed, for how to effectively use the bidding process, the e-bidding.
I can tell you both, because the e-bidding process is very similar to, if you're dealing directly with the county, not through Demand Star. Follow all the instructions and the rules exactly. If there is a deadline, when you obviously online, when you submit your proposal, it's locked in with a date and a time. But even if you're dropping an envelope off at the counter, most governmental counters, reception areas, will have a time stamping clock, because that's how serious it is. We've had people that have delivered their very strong proposals 2 minutes late. If it's 4 o'clock on a Friday, it's 4 o'clock on a Friday, not 4:05 on a Friday. So follow the rules exactly. If they tell you that you can only submit 3 pages of information about your product, and you submit 25 pages of information about your product, you're out. You might have won that bid, but you're out. So follow all of the rules. The other thing I would tell you is do not lie or exaggerate, or whatever words you want to use. There are people whose jobs it is to research and sort of validate all of your information. If you say you've been in business for 15 years and you've been in business for 5 years, that's a problem. So do not exaggerate or fabricate information. There's a very real possibility they'll figure it out. You might win the contract and then realize after the fact. We just had that happen with us, with someone building a bridge. It was probably a $30 million contract. And they said that they could handle the traffic management, because what happens, they're going to have to block one lane and let one lane go. They said they had done that many times in the past, and they had never done it before. They won the contract, and a month later, we had to pull it away from them because they did not tell the truth on what they could do. So that's be on time, follow the rules, do not fabricate. Lying sounds a little harsh. Don't exaggerate your qualifications, because there's a very real possibility that they'll figure it out.
Right. I once met with a federal contracts officer who told me 2 things that I like to always pass along. She said, to your point, Ed, about following the directions, if they say that this proposal needs to be in 12-point Roman font, you better have it in 12-point Roman or whatever font it is, because they'll just throw it out. If it looks like it's 14-point font, they, you didn't follow the rules, out. They get lots and lots of these applications, and they've got to weed them out before they start reviewing them. The other thing she mentioned, which I think is a really great idea that a lot of people don't take advantage of, is that if you do not get the contract, there is a period of time where you can speak to the contracts officer and ask questions. Ask, what was it about my application that did not meet the criteria, or why was I not chosen? And the contracts officers have told us that they really like it when someone comes in and asks those questions, because it shows that that person is very interested. You're building a relationship with that person, plus now you're top of mind. And now you have the opportunity as a woman-owned business to say, can you introduce me to the prime contractor? I'm a diverse business. I might be able to help them meet their supplier diversity goals. So always, always take advantage of that time period that's right after the contract has been awarded, where you can go in and speak to the contracts officer and ask some questions.
With that, Nancy, I have two important points. The other thing is once you start, whether it's government or anyone else, once you start to develop these relationships and you have these successes where you're getting your products or services in, ask them, if you feel comfortable, ask them if they know of other people that are their peers. So first, do they, like if you're in a county, maybe they can introduce you to the person that's in the city, their counterpart in the city. Why wouldn't they want to? A lot of people like to refer excellent opportunities to other people. It's a benefit for them. The other thing is to ask questions if you can use them as a reference. Once you're doing business with someone, don't assume to use their name as a reference. Ask, hey, we're doing nice business here and I'm trying to get a contract, 3 counties away. Do you mind if I use your name? And most of the time I have people ask me all the time if they can use me for a reference, and I have no problem with that. Obviously, if I don't know them well, I try to reserve my reference, giving them out pretty tight. What I do not like is when people use me for a reference, but they never ask me. And I see a lot of applications where people are applying for positions, and on the reference thing, they use my name, but no one ever, I would have given them the reference, but there's not an assumption that you can just use someone's name, even if it's a friend. And to Nancy's point about asking why you didn't get something, don't get frustrated. Some of these people have had long time relationships with other people. And if you're going to try to push in, you might have to try to push in 10 times, but maybe you get it on the 11th. So don't give up. And then the final thing about asking the questions on what did you do wrong, I always use it for my own children. Some tests that college students are taking online, when you get your grade, you ask like, well, what questions did I get wrong? Well, they don't tell me. What do you mean they don't tell you? How do you know which ones you got right and which ones you got wrong? So Nancy's point about, if you're able to, any idea of like why I got it and why someone else got it and I didn't? I mean, it's like getting a test back that says you failed, but they didn't tell you what questions you got wrong. So that's an excellent point, Nancy.
Beautiful. Well, thank you very, very much, Ed. I've seen in the chat, people have written that you gave lots of really great information.
I hope so.
So we really, really appreciate that. Thank you so much.
If you want to use me in the link, I can be your inside the government resource wherever you are in the state. If you were nice enough to tune in today to Emily, Nancy, and I to hear what I had to say, Emily, you can post my county email address. Everything you write is a public record, mind you, and my emails are posted. But if you want to ask me a question, or if you have some concern that we didn't touch on today, or you think of tomorrow, you say, man, I wish I could have asked that question, you can email me. I get a lot of emails, but I'll work hard to get you your answer, and or ask our staff to get you an answer, because that way you're getting inside information versus trying to ask a question of the person you're also trying to put the proposal through to. Sometimes they won't answer. The last thing I'll say before I go, it's very important. It's a weird phrase. we have something called the cone of silence. I think it's throughout the state of Florida. Once a bidding process has begun, do not reach out anymore to the purchasing manager or anybody that might be on a decision-making committee or to your elected officials. You immediately disqualify yourself. Once the process has gone from open bids to the decision-making process, if you reach out to people and they find out about it, you're disqualified. It's called the cone of silence.
Right, right. Very important. And that is always the time frame for the cone of silence is always outlined and highlighted. And before the cone of silence, there are always opportunities where you can send in questions or attend bid information meetings. Okay, so thank you again. We're at the top of our hour. Emily, do you want to just wrap up?
But I just want to thank Ed again for being so wonderful with all the great insights, and for everyone for being with us today.
All right, everybody. Thank you very much again, Ed. Thank you for all the great information, and thanks for the business development series. Okay, thank you. Thanks for participating.
Bye, guys.
All right. Goodbye, everyone.